Hey there, and welcome to the Confident Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Brooks. Join me as I sit down and chat with co-hosts, friends, and carefully curated guests and talk about all the things that empower you to become your best and most confident self. So, let's get started. Hey there, and welcome back. So today, I thought it would be a fun little, just quick episode to drop a few of my favorite things. And what I mean by that is these are some of my anchors that help really root and ground me into starting my day. And what I mean is, we all have this morning routine, or whether you do or you don't, you actually have a routine. So whether it's a healthy one, whether it's setting you up for success for the day, whether it is grounding you, keeping you in this present moment, whatever that looks like, that's awesome. Because this is kind of the crux of today's message. But for those who don't have one that feels like, yeah, this is really working for me, I'd love for you just to tune in, because sometimes it's just about making little tweaks in the current routine you have. And then if you're on the other side where you're like, I don't even have a routine. Listen, sometimes we don't know what we have until we actually account for it. So one of my favorite quotes, and this is kind of one for one, it's like how to really get into the nitty gritty. And it's super simple. It's if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? So I want to talk briefly about setting you up for success with your morning routine and how to manage your time that is best going to move you towards your goals or move that needle closer to whatever that outcome is. So whether you're working on your personal health and wellness, to getting that passion project launched, to starting up a new business, whatever this looks like in your season, I want to give a couple things here that I think is suited for any and everything. First and foremost is gratitude. And I know it's going to be one's like, okay, great, gratitude, give thanks, cool, move on, give me something else that's tangible. But I really want to take a moment here to really hone in and emphasize the importance of gratitude. So having an attitude of gratitude really is a choice. It's not something somebody just wakes up and it's there, bam, everyone's awesome. This is incredible. Today's the day. Yay, right? We're not always that lit. We're not always that happy. We're not always that grateful. And to be honest, it's actually getting harder and harder. And this is just for me, even like I have these anchors. These are my firm foundation. But I'll tell you what, sometimes you just turn on the news or check your email or overhear a conversation. There is so much negativity. There's so much darkness. There's so much just to be not grateful for, if we're really being honest. But having that intentional attitude of gratitude allows us to seek out the good in all things. And while we're shifting our mind to not just hear or absorb or consume what is happening, all the bad stuff, we shift that intention and say, wow, well, that was interesting. What good could come out of that bad situation? Or having that gratitude for each morning. It could be something as simple as giving thanks for this day, because it's a gift. It's a blessing that we're here. And when we start looking at things intentionally, setting our eyes and our heart and our mind on it, what do you think happens? We start living in alignment with that. So this is why it's so important to have gratitude as part of your daily practice. And again, it's not just like, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family. That's a great place to start. But I really challenge you to dive into those hard, heavy, dark places and intentionally seek out the good. So, I know as we go through seasons, I know there's a heaviness. There's some things that just are not in light that we really want to talk about. But I challenge you, as those times have passed, what can you look back on your life and be grateful for from those moments? And I think as we do, we start realizing now that as the bad, I'm just using this for simple purposes here, but the bad things that happen to us, how quickly we can shift that into the good. And so we don't spend excess time and energy just woeing over all that is wrong, because with wrong comes right, with good comes bad, with sadness comes happiness. And so there's always that counterpart, but if we don't, again, intentionally seek that, our presets are technically there to see the bad and the negative, because honestly, it's just there for our protection. We're always on the lookout for safety, for security, for protection. So we're not always going to see the good, because if things were good, what is the point of our kind of fear mechanism, right? It's always there to protect. So moving on from just being grateful, it's about, again, jotting down those things, taking a microscope, refining them, and start shifting the narrative and the perspective, because you're going to start seeing this in different areas of your life and coming up. So as you kind of practice this, and this now becomes kind of second nature to you, you're building up more resilience. The quicker you get back up after being knocked down, the quicker you can shift that energy from negative to positive. And at the end of the day, when we are focusing on those moments, we have to ask ourselves, where is our headspace at? Where are we actually going? And when we're shifting our focus from that of not being so grateful and happy and content, we're ultimately choosing the latter. So what we focus on grows. So if we're looking to focus on more positivity and happiness and peace and joy and contentment and all the things that we're actually really longing for, if we're being honest with ourselves, they're all within. So shift that focus, shift that energy, shift that mindset, and you're going to start seeing things just really highlight in a whole different area of your life. So I wanted to bring that up first because, again, gratitude is just really the foundation to building a life that you absolutely love. And then on top of that, in any season that you find yourself in, so this is pointer number 2, is knowing that with every season, there comes another season, right? Seasons are there. They're just, think of it as like 4 seasons. If you live in a climate that allows you to have these 4 seasons, you can recognize, so we can kind of compare that. And so recognizing that seasons change. And in every season, this too shall pass. Nothing in our life is permanent. This whole life that we have is temporary. So taking that context of gratitude, let's just say something is just drastically happening to you. You're like, there's no way I could find goodness in this. And I get it, because sometimes it's hard when you're literally in the midst of it. And maybe that's where we have to put our perspective on the horizon and say, well, maybe I don't need to be grateful for this exact moment, but there's other things to be grateful for. And maybe that is your family that is supporting you in a hard time, the financial means to get you through the season you're in. Again, shifting that perspective, because at the end of the day, again, everything is temporary. Whatever pain you're feeling, whatever suffering you're enduring, whatever discouragement is happening, it will pass. It always does. We need to keep our heads up. We need to be grateful, and we need to give ourselves as much encouragement, hope, and inspiration that something good will always come of everything bad. So just sharing that. And then moving on to pointer 3 is listening to that quiet whisper that is inside. That is your voice of reason. That is your voice of knowing. That is the soul of who you are. And as we're going through life, again, we are bombarded by the sounds that we hear, TV, music, friends, family, our own voice, right? Sometimes all of that just pipes up and just shouts loud and loud and loud. And we can't hear that inner whisper. We can't hear the soul of who you are. We can't tune in when everything is rising above. But when we find that quiet time in that space, and we're carving out the first 15 minutes of our day to be grateful, to journal, to praise, to give thanks, however this looks like for you in your morning routine, then you can tap into that innate calling of who you are. You check in with that inner being that is really, she is in you. That is that soul. And ask her what she needs. How does she feel? How does she need to be cared for? What is keeping her from piping up more, having more of a say in your life? What needs to be quieted down so you could turn up that inner voice? Some of these are just deep reflection questions that I challenge you to really explore And I know this isn't for everyone, so I'm giving a few different examples, but let me just preface this here is that if you don't know yourself and you don't know the direction or calling or purpose in your life, others will determine that for you. And when it's determined for us, that attitude of gratitude can be quickly just thrown away because we feel now that we're going against the grain. We're being met with resistance. We're being met in areas that don't feel aligned to us. And the more we keep pushing into becoming someone or something else, then that's where we've caused a ruffle in our alignment between our identity and our actions. And so that's why tapping in and having some sort of a routine, a daily practice for yourself to get you grounded and centered and set you up for a successful day. And I'm going to note that at day because our job each day is just to get through these 24 hours, right? It's to get through the moment by moment. We can't look at necessarily the long term, even though it's great because listen, I'm a visionary. I live sometimes in my hot air balloon floating high in the sky. But the reality is that we're not promised tomorrow. We're not promised next week. We're not promised next year. And so if we start living intentionally day by day and keeping our eyes and our mind and our hearts open, then we're selling ourselves short and we're discounting that the gift here today is to be as present as possible. So when we're carving out those first few moments, what do you think is possible when we're giving that to ourselves? Think of how much we're going to perform, how much love and more kindness and compassion and patience we have for others. And, as the rest of the day starts to open up, your children wake up, your spouse wakes up, you're, on your way to work and you got colleagues and calls and clients and all the things, all of them are taking pieces of your day and pieces of you. So if you don't preserve that for yourself to set yourself up to have that successful day, they will. And they will steal every bit of it. Because listen, we got to put those barriers. We got to put some boundaries on ourselves because it's for our own protection to protect that inner peace and protect that happiness and that gratitude and that contentment. Because really at the end of the day, isn't that what we're really striving after? So what better way to start the day is to give it to ourselves first. So I hope that this is helpful and it resonates with you. And again, reach out to me because I feel like sometimes I'm just behind this mic and I don't get to talk to you guys. So I want to know more of what you want to hear, but I also want to know if these lessons that we share, whether it's from myself or from our incredible guests, I mean, gosh, they have just been pouring out their hearts and souls to you guys. So again, sometimes we just need that reassurance that this is really resonating with you because that gives us that feedback to keep doing, keep producing the content, keep putting out more of what you love and want to hear. So again, shoot me a message, follow me on Instagram. Actually, any of the social media platforms is where I'm hanging these days. I am Rachel Brooks. You can always connect with me at my website, IamRachelBrooks.com. And of course, we have an incredible community called the Confident Woman Community. So please come in, make yourself at home and just, have at it. Our space is your space. So we are meant to do life together. So come join us and let's do that. Until next time, take care. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Confident Woman Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Thanks again for listening.